Welcome to Backyard Cigars, and I have an interesting cigar for today. I have to say, I do. This is the Back2BACK New York, and this was a torpedo size 7x52. You even see if they actually include the size of the cigar right there, in case you forget. This cigar line is being distributed by Davidoff. It's a collaboration between two New York artists who run a an artistic creative company or creative artistic company in New York City by the name of UR New York, and UR of course is Urban Artists New York City, and these guys have teamed up with Davidoff, and they are even ambassadors of their Xeno Platinum line, I believe. Believe the cigars were originally introduced sometime in either 2014, somewhere between 2014 and 2017. And it kind of reminds me when Davidoff was working with Matt Booth on the Room 101, the Payback. And the Payback was actually designed to give consumers a cheaper cigar, good quality, cheaper cigar, big cigars for less money. Whereas this line, not so cheap. And you still get the big ring gauges. This is obviously this is 752. It's still a hefty cigar, but normal. But it is a little pricier. I think it's somewhere between $15 and $17. And this cigar sports an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper with a USA Connecticut shade binder and filler from the Dominican Republic and Peru. And we've heard of tobacco from Peru before. The times that I've been able to describe it are from minor descriptions that I've gotten that it's earthy and spicy. And that's usually what I've gotten from it. It's not like it's used a lot, so it's not like you don't have a lot of people talking about, obviously, a cigar with mainly Peruvian tobacco, where you can really get to taste not just the quality. I'm sure that the quality is good, but really the all of the flavors and the notes that Peruvian tobacco would provide. But at this point in time, and even in one other cigar that I had, you can taste the spiciness of the Peruvian tobacco. It's medium bodied, it's slightly spicy, the little touch of earth. The only way I'm able to identify it sometimes is in the contrast to whatever it's being blended with. In this case, the Dominican tobacco. So that's what I'm getting from it so far. So it's been so far a bit earthy and spicy. That's what I've gotten so far from this cigar. Mild to medium in body and strength. Good tasting. I got some cedar up front as well, and you get a little bit of some grassy notes. Right now, I'm just starting to get like this really sweet vanilla honey-like flavor in the finish, and that is like really sweet tobacco. And you all know how I feel about that Dominican tobacco. So I'm gonna smoke on it a little bit more. I'm gonna come back. We're gonna talk about a few things in regards to the relationship or the collaboration between Davidoff and UR New York, and just go bit by bit on some of the things that have, I guess, allowed this partnership to flourish. So having grown up in New York City, I can remember a time when all of the New York City trains were basically blank canvases for graffiti artists. So Mike Mike Backa and Fernando Romero are the two artists that formed You Are New York, urban artists, back in, I believe, 2004, 2005, around that time. But previous to that, they were basically tag artists. And when you look back into New York City's past and you look, if you find it online, the graffiti artists, I mean, they were in Philadelphia, they were in New York City. Eventually, graffiti spread worldwide, right? I mean, you go to Iraq and you'd see graffiti, some form of graffiti. Then there's ancient graffiti. So ancient graffiti going back to the days back in Pompeii, back in Egypt, was a different type of graffiti, obviously. But in New York City, the spray can graffiti is what really dominated. And at its best, graffiti can be something amazing and beautiful to look at, and so eye-catchy. At its worst, it's just dirty vandalism, right? With someone trying to establish themselves and make a name, because that's how it was back then. They, you wanted to get your name, your tag, in the most prominent places. You wanted to get talked about, but if your artwork wasn't on point, then you were just vandalizing. So the goal of taking a New York City train car, and tagging it up from, you know, front to end, back the whole train, the idea was to create a work of art, something that would send a statement, it would express a statement about what kind of an artist you were, not just that you were looking to tag your tag and your name, your brand, but you were looking for it. So Mike Baca and Fernando Romero, they were these type of guys, and it just kind of takes me back to, why would Davidoff team up with them? Not to disparage them in any way. That's not where I'm going with this. But you would think, sort of how at one point advertisement wanted nothing to do with rap music or hip hop because of gangster rap or, vulgar lyrics, what have you. And then came a point where there was just this compromise of, this sells and we're going to use it to sell, and we're going to soften the tones, and we're going to create a different type of hip hop, but it's going to have a hip hop vibe to it. And so now it's kind of commonplace to see everything from McDonald's to whatever kind of product using a little bit of a hip hop element to sell their products. In the case of Davidoff, I think, teamed up with them because these men know how to really get the message across, and two, they appeal to a certain demographic that is young and hip and cutting edge and artistic, and you want these type of people smoking your cigars, right? You want them to know about your cigars, so it makes sense to make them as well brand ambassadors for your line. But it also kind of harkens back to a time when, even before the whole McDonald's and hip hop thing, when during the 70s and early 80s, established classical artists and art houses began to showcase graffiti. And you can see the documentaries with, Jean Basquiat and all these different people rubbing elbows with Andy Warhol, and these are kids from the street, just really rough and unpolished, and they're being placed in these art houses to show their work, and you can just see the look on their face, like, this is something that I'm used to feeling like once I do this, I've got to run and take off because I'm going to get arrested. And here I am displaying it and being praised for it, and I've got flocks of people asking me about it and asking what's my inspiration and my motivation for it. Well, it was new to them because for so long it was, and it's still illegal obviously, but for so long that was just what it was. It was illegal. You were an outlaw, you were a bandit, and if you were tagging up, you tagged up your name, cops were on the lookout for you. You had to worry about people dropping a dime on you. But yet there was this artistic soul to a good majority of these artists who were doing this and didn't necessarily feel that they were vandalizing, even though they were. Because let's face it, some of it was just vandalism and it wasn't art at all. But the prominent guys like that I remember from back in the day, like Kane and you just remember Kane, Merck. Merck wasn't really that much of an artist. He kind of just wanted to put his name up really big on the side of buildings. But you had Kane, you had Comet, you had Blade. In Philadelphia, you had Cornbread, and I believe you had Zulu in Philadelphia, because I've got family in Philly. So you know, they were like legends of the neighborhood hood. They were the legends that you talked about, and that every now and then they'd get commissioned to do like a rest in peace mural, and they'd come by. And even in Bed-Stuy, another area that I'm very familiar with, you had some artists later on, even into the 90s, that weren't tagging anymore, but their careers were over. They were retired. Some of them would retire their careers for all to see by just putting their tag up and saying, in the case of Cornbread is dead, or Cornbread is retired. And you'd know that that was it. You weren't going to see any more tags by these people. And if you did, it was a copycat. And that was frowned upon. So, just the thought of Davidoff getting into bed with these gentlemen who were part of that element. They were a big part of that. And in the early 2000s, the same thing that happened in the late 70s and early 80s, where these art houses were recruiting these graffiti artists to come in and show their work and to sort of join the mainstream, the artistic community. It began to happen again in the early 2000s. And urban artists, New York, they work not just with graffiti. Obviously, they do with photography, screen prints, and they incorporate a variety of artistic components to create something unique. And so they're not your typical graffiti artists in any way, and it shows in so many. If you look at their artwork, it's incredible. It's just amazing. But there are some things in it that when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that could have still been on a train car, 30 years ago or whatever. And that's fine, because now it's reached another level where it captures, it's the visual of their artwork is just something special. And so for Davidoff to get involved with them, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was very cool. And for them to be a part of the Davidoff family in terms of being ambassadors, I thought that was incredibly cool as well. This is limited edition. It does say it on the cigar. Excuse me, there's a lot of pollen in the air. But it's a really nice looking cigar. I like the band. I'm not 100% sure to what extent New York was involved in the design of the band, but if I find out, I'll add it in the notes. Sweet, little spice hint. Slightly dry, earthy. It's not a very complex cigar, at least not yet. It's just really nice. It's burns really well, as you can see. Very good burn line. Has been a slow burner, and I'm liking it so far. It holds promise for me at this point, and I want to see where it goes. I've told you a little bit about the company that has collaborated with Davidoff on this so far, and what they mean to communities in New York City and globally. Because, like I said, graffiti spread all over, and the influence from New York City and in the Northeast, Philadelphia, and places like that, really, really traveled far. I mean, these guys were idolized, and I know for a fact there were a few of them in my family circle, and it was like, when you doing your next piece? When's your next piece gonna be out? I can't tell you, man. It's top secret because it's getting hot out there, and we got to be careful, and they'd have to pick these locations, and they would make contacts to get access, and it became like this very underground, secretive, street type of, but it was still an appreciation of art. A lot of people were like, yeah, it's about the man leaving a stamp in his name, but that's what Davidoff is trying to do here. They're trying to leave their stamp on this demographic, and move their brand forward in that direction. Let's see where it goes. I'm gonna take a break with it and smoke a little bit more. I'll be back. Cigars and graffiti may be two different animals. I get that. But graffiti is art, and cigars are a form of artwork as well. The making of a cigar and its final product is a work of art. And I think that when you have the right people behind any given cigar line, their instincts are to create something out of this world, to make something in an artistic form, an artistic fashion. That is not lost here. I'm getting a lot of nice, sweet, creamy, earthy tobacco, light hints of cedar, toasted woody notes. This is just a fine cigar. It really is. I'm really digging it. I'm really enjoying it. It's mild to medium, more so medium in the second third, and expecting a true medium by the final third. But it's just so well crafted. And whatever they did here, do it again. I feel I got my money's worth here. I definitely enjoy puffing on this cigar. I have to slow myself down because I just want to keep enjoying it. And I tell myself, no, don't warm the cherry up. Let it be. Give it a chance to rest and cool. And I really feel that this is the type of cigar that I would buy again, for sure. So, saying that, I'm obviously giving it a thumbs up. Great backstory. Even though the story itself doesn't have to do with the actual creation of the cigar, the tobacco in it, and so forth, but what the blend they used, excellent blend. The Peruvian tobacco providing that bit of spiciness in the beginning that just got a little earthier as the cigar continued. Now it's just Dominican domination going on with the creaminess, the sweetness, and just so well balanced. So well balanced. And the construction on the cigar is excellent. The ashes dropped once, yes. The burn line, no issues, not even a thought about it. And just a beautiful wrapper on this cigar. I can't begin to tell you how calm and relaxed I've been as I've been out here, just sitting here, and actually, going down memory lane, thinking about all those tag artists from back in the day in the neighborhood, and thinking how, two guys from the hood, Mike Baca and Fernando Romero, are now in a position in their lives where they've got a company well established, and wowing the artistic community as well as the cigar community in regards to their partnership with Davidoff. And I'm happy for them, and I'm happy to be smoking this cigar. I'm gonna come back when I'm ready to give you my final summary of the cigar, but I'm gonna be enjoying it in the meantime. Okay, I'm ready to sum this baby up. In the beginning, it was cedar, some grassy notes that would come and go, a sweetness, a light sweetness, and some spiciness. And then as the cigar progressed, you got some woody, earthy notes, and then it developed into a really creamy, sweet, earthy cigar. You'd get occasional notes of honey and vanilla, and the cedar hints would remain in the background. The spice really died down by the second, third, and it just became a really sweet, earthy, creamy cigar. Even now, as I smoke it in the final, heading into the final third now, it's still sweet, creamy, earthy. Some of the spice hints and some of those the pepper notes that I got in the very beginning are creeping back up slowly, but they're faint. And really, it's just a overly earthy, sweet cigar. Really good Dominican tobacco. Well constructed, well balanced, good transitions. The type of cigar that you can give to an aficionado or a novice smoker. It's just that type of cigar. Mild to medium, medium true by the final third. When I got this cigar, I had no idea what it was going to be like. I really didn't. It was a blind purchase. It wasn't a part of a sampler. I made a conscious decision just to give it a shot and let the chips fall where they may. Then I did a little minor research into the collaboration between Davidoff and the UR New York. But that was it. And what I found was that besides all of the information that I gave you, at the heart of it, you have a fantastic cigar. Just hands down fantastic. And I recommend it. And I also thank all of you for watching. Till next time on Backyard Cigars, thank you.